The seal had finally shattered. From the ruins of the ancient altar, devilish chi surged like a rising tide, threatening to drown the mortal world in darkness once more. And standing at the edge of that catastrophe, a handful of cultivators realized that the fate of two realms might now rest on a single desperate decision. If you enjoy my way of explaining and storytelling, please consider supporting us through the donation. It really motivates us to keep creating. As space itself began to twist and distort around the colossal black vortex, the star-defying plate finally revealed its true might. Starlight pulsed from its center like the beating heart of a celestial body. From it burst countless fist-sized orbs of radiant light, streaking outward and leaving trails of molten gold wherever they passed. The spectacle was mesmerizing, like a storm of shooting stars scattering across the vast night sky. The two-headed wolf paid the attack no heed. Instead, it drove the black vortex into an even greater frenzy, causing it to devour far more specks of white light from its surroundings as its compression intensified. Yet in the next moment, the black wolf was astonished by what it saw. The golden starlight brushed past the top of the vortex instead of striking it. Was I mistaken? Absurd. How could that happen with the guidance of my spiritual sense? Confusion flickered through the wolf's mind, but almost immediately it sensed something amiss. One of its heads suddenly turned around and recoiled in shock at what it saw. The wolf's other head hastily began chanting a rapid string of incantations. From within the vortex erupted another surge of rainbow light, attempting to prevent the scattered golden starlight from converging. But Ling Long suddenly shouted, her voice ringing sharply through the air. "It's too late. I've already released him." The moment her words fell, a vast cluster of starlight gathered roughly 100 meters behind the vortex. From within that brilliant glow, a silhouette slowly descended. Floating amidst the drifting starlight, the figure looked around in bewilderment. The instant Han Li laid eyes on him, he was utterly dumbfounded. Him? How did he get here? The man was Xiang Zhili, the sly-looking old cultivator who had once been sealed away by the combined soul of Ling Long and Yuancha using phantasmic air when he entered Kunwu Mountain. Back then, their merged soul had been able to wield a variety of secret techniques from both the spirit realm and the elder devil realm, producing a terrifying power comparable to that of a void refinement cultivator. One recurring character, first introduced in Yellow Maple Valley during the trial by Blood and Fire, and later reappearing at the Heavenly Talisman sect. Chapter 960. That power had been enough to temporarily imprison Xiang Zhili within a space completely isolated from spiritual chi. As for phantasmic air, it was an ancient technique long lost in the mortal realm. Though extremely demanding, it possessed the ability to temporarily seal a person inside a spatial tear. Such tears could not exist for long and were impossible to enter from the outside. The technique was also known by several other names, including the Immortal Seal Curtain and the Nightmare Prison. Naturally, the effectiveness of the technique depended heavily on the cultivation levels of both caster and target. If a low-grade cultivator attempted to imprison someone far stronger, the technique would almost certainly backfire. Furthermore, those trapped inside could forcefully break open the tear using sufficiently incisive magic treasures or simply wait until the technique naturally expired. Under normal circumstances, the technique was not particularly practical. Even if high-grade cultivators used it against weaker opponents, those trapped could often break free without much difficulty. Needless to say, using it in the reverse situation would be even more futile. As such, it was most often employed between cultivators of similar strength, and only when timing and circumstances left no other viable option. Moreover, the technique could only be used once a cultivator reached mid-deity transformation, which was likely the reason it had gradually vanished from this world. Dissolving the technique also demanded an enormous amount of magical power and a formidable spiritual sense. By drawing upon the power of the star-defying plate, Ling Long had forcibly unraveled the seal. Although Xiang Zhili did not fully understand the technique itself, he had heard scattered legends about it. Ever since being sealed, he had remained perfectly still in meditation, fearing that even the slightest movement might plunge him into a dangerous illusion. Now that he had suddenly been released, he was utterly disoriented, like someone abruptly awakened from a long dream. His narrow eyes darted around, rapidly filled with confusion. Meanwhile, a flash of resentment flickered across the faces of the two-headed wolf. Without hesitation, it fired two beams of black light into the black wind flag hovering before it. The banner trembled violently. From it erupted countless black threads that shot toward the vortex from every direction, wrapping tightly around it. By this time, the vortex had already compressed down to a diameter of only 3 meters. As the black threads coiled around it, the vortex abruptly halted, then rapidly shrank into a sphere, barely a foot wide. The sphere appeared to be a fragment of pure void, its edges constantly pulsing and warping. The surrounding space twisted violently, as though the void itself were devouring reality. Only a spatial-type divine spirit treasure, such as the Black Wind Flag, could produce something so terrifying and inconceivable. The moment Xiang Zhili saw the sphere, his expression changed drastically. Not good. Without hesitation, he spat out a crimson triangular token. The token flashed brilliantly. In the blink of an eye, it was engulfed in golden flames and blinding radiance, transforming into the shape of a beast. The creature possessed an armored body, 2 curved horns and golden flames swirling around it like a blazing aura. It resembled a strange hybrid between an ox and a tiger. The instant it appeared, the fiery beast leapt upward in a streak of golden light and shot directly toward the black hole. At the same time, Xiang Zhili's body erupted with brilliant purple radiance, forming a protective barrier around him as he stared tensely at the miniature black hole. Just before the flaming beast could reach it, Yuan Cha's wicked laughter echoed from within the black void. The sphere suddenly sank through the air, warping repeatedly before shifting directly above the altar. It pulsed violently as though it might rupture at any moment. Hanli suddenly noticed something horrifying. Across the surrounding space, countless long and thin black cracks began to appear. They shrieked sharply as they spread outward like bolts of lightning. From afar, the entire scene resembled a gigantic shattered mirror suspended in the sky. Hanli's complexion turned pale. Was he about to be dragged through another spatial tear? Previously, when the 8th floor of the devil-suppressing pagoda collapsed, the floor's restrictions had activated, preventing any real danger. But this time was entirely different. The unstable tiers appeared randomly throughout the air threads of black light flickering within them. Even if he were lucky enough to be sucked into a sufficiently large spatial tear, survival would only be possible if fate carried him into a small spatial pocket. Hanli's gaze suddenly fell upon Taoist 7 Wonders, who were still firmly restrained near the altar by the 3-headed devil. Being closest to the epicenter of the catastrophe, the Taoist was struck by 8-foot-wide spatial tears in rapid succession. His body was instantly erased from existence. As for the nascent soul that escaped from the shattered remains of his body, it was immediately sucked into one of the larger tiers and vanished from this world entirely. Witnessing such a horrifying scene, Hanli inwardly cursed. Several spatial tiers had already begun moving toward him, closing in from all directions. From afar, he also heard Guiling's miserable scream echo through the chaos. But Hanli had neither the time nor the focus to look elsewhere. Gritting his teeth, he prepared to fight for his life. Taking the initiative, he rushed toward an incoming spatial tear, only a few inches wide, raising the heaven-void cauldron to meet it head-on. With no other options left, he could only pray that the cauldron would prove sturdy enough to withstand the destructive force of a spatial tear. To his immense relief, the cauldron merely glowed with soft azure light and let out a low hum upon contact with the thin tier, forcibly blocking it. Hanli immediately blurred into motion, slipping past the tear. When he glanced back, several larger spatial tiers whipped violently through the place he had just occupied, reducing the area to a chaotic mass. Cold sweat drenched his back. The tiers trembled violently, their surfaces glowing with intense black light. Seeing this, Han Li grimaced as tension once again seized his heart. Yet what happened next left him stunned. As the black light swirled from the tear, it suddenly retreated just as quickly as if time itself were reversing. In the blink of an eye, all the spatial tiers around Han Li vanished as though they had never existed. Relief flooded through him. Then he suddenly remembered Gui Ling's scream from earlier and hurriedly searched for her. He looked toward where she had been moments ago, but she was nowhere to be seen. Han Li's heart sank. Extending his spiritual sense, he searched for the life-soul tile connected to the demon, but the tile had already vanished. With a quiet sigh of sorrow, Han Li forced himself to set the matter aside and refocus on the crisis before him. Not far away, Lin Yinping and Corpse Xiong had not managed to retreat as far as he had, but fortunately, they were still unharmed. Corpse Xiong was surrounded by a dazzling crimson glow, his expression calm and composed. Lin Yinping, however, looked deathly pale. Just moments ago, several spatial tears had brushed dangerously close to her. The fact that she was still alive could only be described as sheer luck. Or perhaps, the vast power of the endless sky patron god had secretly protected her all along. Han Li cast only a brief glance at Corpse Xiong and Lin Yinping before turning his gaze back toward the altar. The tension written across his face betrayed the unease he was trying to suppress. In its attempt to destroy the altar's seal, Yuan Cha's soul fragment had detonated the black wind flag, swallowing the altar within a vast jet-black void. Although Han Li could not see through the darkness, his spiritual sense told him that most of the stone pillars that made up the spell formation had already been destroyed. He stared intently at the swirling black radiance. As it rapidly collapsed and suddenly vanished, his eyes widened in shock. Nearly half of the altar was gone. Its upper portion had vanished entirely, as if some invisible blade had cleaved it away. Floating near the shattered remains of the altar was a lone figure. It was Xiang Zhili. A fragile barrier of purple light enveloped him, flickering as though it might shatter at any moment. Sweat drenched his body, and his face was drained of all color as though he had just endured a life-and-death struggle. Two objects hovered beside him. One was the foot-wide star-defying plate, slowly spinning in mid-air, while surrounded by a viscous, golden barrier resembling molten paste. The other was a broken jet-black stick. Han Li quickly recognized it as a fragment of the Black Wind flag. Most of the divine spirit treasure had been obliterated in the explosion. Only a small remnant remained, flickering faintly with black light as if the last traces of its spiritual essence still lingered. Han Li swept his gaze around the area but saw no sign of Ling Long or the Black Wolf. Just as confusion began to grow in his mind, the star-defying plate suddenly spun faster and released a cloud of golden mist from its core. From within the mist, Ling Long stepped out. Her eyes were icy as she glared at the remnant of the Black Wind flag. Almost simultaneously, the broken fragment released a dense cloud of black chi that rapidly condensed, forming a two-headed wolf roughly a meter tall. Its fur had lost its former luster, and its eyes looked dull and lifeless. The moment Xiang Zhili saw the two figures appear, his expression darkened. Drawing several deep breaths, the color slowly returned to his face. Without uttering a single word, he raised his hand and pointed two fingers toward the wolf. A gust of wind swept forward. Two streaks of swordlight, one gold, one crimson, shot forth and instantly expanded into the shapes of two celestial dragons intertwined with one another, roaring as they lunged toward the wolf. Xiang Zhili had acted without hesitation. Though he had no clear understanding of what had transpired, he could easily sense the dense devilish chi emanating from the wolf. It had to be the devil that had once been suppressed within the pagoda, and at this moment the creature was clearly weakened. If he did not seize this chance to subdue it, there might never be another. The wolf glared viciously at the approaching attack. Its two heads opened their jaws and spat out beams of black light to intercept the sword light. Yet it was obvious that its counterattack would not be enough. The wolf had already exhausted too much of its devilish chi when it detonated the Black Wind flag. Surprisingly, however, the wolf showed no fear. Instead, It cast a sinister glance down at the ruined altar below and suddenly let out a shriek so piercing it seemed capable of shattering metal. Even from afar, Han Li could scarcely believe what happened next. The remains of the altar abruptly collapsed. Not a single fragment remained. At the same time, a surge of pitch-black devilish qi erupted from the rubble, spreading outward like an unstoppable tide. "No, the seal has been opened," Corpse Xiong shouted in alarm. Ling Long's expression immediately darkened. Although Xiang Zhili was unaware of the full circumstances, the moment he saw such an overwhelming amount of devilish qi pouring out, realization flashed across his mind. His face instantly turned grim. At the same moment, Han Li silently pointed toward the enormous golden sword floating above his head. The sword hummed violently as it slashed toward the nearest section of the space's barrier. A thunderous explosion erupted. Blinding golden light burst from the wall. At the same time, the puppet beside Han Li raised its thunderfire bow, releasing a dense barrage of crimson arrows that struck the exact same point. Within moments, the wall trembled violently, but it was far from breaking. Han Li's expression hardened. With a swift motion of his hand, he summoned the tri-flame fan. Before he could unleash it, however, a streak of golden light and two white crescents suddenly shot forward, striking the same location. Startled, Han Li turned his head. Corpse Xiong and Lin Yinping had already rushed over. Their attacks were hurried and desperate. Clearly they understood their situation. Whatever ambitions they might have had before survival now came first. Without another word, Han Li joined the assault. With a sweep of the tri-flame fan, a three-colored flame bird erupted forth and slammed into the wall. A blazing nova of flame exploded outward, talisman characters flickering within the inferno. Deafening explosions echoed through the space. At last the wall began to warp. Under the relentless barrage, it bent to an extreme degree, but still refused to break. Han Li's expression grew increasingly grim. Without hesitation, he swallowed a drop of spirit milk, instantly restoring his depleted magic power before continuing the attack. Just then, a streak of yellow light suddenly flew over and attached itself to the wall. The light faded, revealing a yellow talisman. In the next instant, a layer of yellow energy spread across the entire wall. Immediately afterward, a sphere of dazzling golden light descended like a falling star. Within that light appeared a strange beast, wreathed in raging golden flames. With a tremendous quake, the wall split open. A narrow gap appeared, revealing faint traces of light from outside. Delighted by the sudden opportunity, Han Li did not hesitate. His body flashed forward and shot through the opening, his human puppet following closely behind. Light flooded his vision. When his surroundings came into focus again, he found himself standing inside a vast, familiar hall. Several streaks of light followed through the opening behind him, circling briefly in the air before coming to a halt. They were Lin Yinping, Corpse Xiong, and Xiang Zhili. The hall they now stood in was none other than the 7th floor of the devil-suppressing pagoda. Han Li looked toward Xiang Zhili with astonishment. The old man simply chuckled softly in response, offering no further explanation. Just then, another streak of golden light shot through the opening. It was Ling Long holding the star-defying plate above her palm. Xiang Zhili opened his mouth as if to speak, then closed it again. He tried once more, but no words came out. Behind them, the hole in the wall rapidly shrank. In the blink of an eye, it completely mended itself. The group exchanged wary glances. A suffocating silence filled the vast hall. Ling Long glanced briefly at Han Li and Xiang Zhili before snorting coldly. "How long do you plan to stand here?" she said. "Once that devil absorbs enough devilish qi, we'll all be dead." Xiang Zhili hesitated for a moment before asking uncertainly, "Are you Senior Long Meng?" Long ago, he had been sealed by the fused soul of Long Meng and Yuan Cha, yet the woman before him now felt completely different from the entity he remembered. "You know quite a bit," Ling Long replied bluntly. "Did the 3 Kunwu masters leave you an explanation? This so-called Long Meng was only a fragment of my existence." Her vague explanation left Xiang Zhili blinking in confusion. Ling Long frowned slightly before sending him a brief voice transmission. The few words she spoke left Xiang Zhili visibly stunned. A flicker of realization appeared in his eyes. He took another careful look at her, extending his spiritual sense to confirm that no trace of devilish qi existed within her body. His expression finally relaxed. He immediately bowed. "My greetings, Imperial Concubine Ling Long. The three masters did leave behind some information regarding your imprisonment. They had no choice but to keep you sealed here, as part of your soul had fused with that devil soul. They did not dare release you." Long Meng merely snorted coldly. "Humph. That matter can wait until I return to the spirit realm. For now we should focus on controlling the situation." Her voice grew grave. "Once my body is immersed in perfect devil qi for 3 days, it will become completely corrupted. By then the devil will have fully restored its power. Once she escapes, raising an army will be trivial. The entire mortal realm will once again be engulfed in war." Xiang Zhili scratched his head and gave a wry smile. "I know a little about how terrifying true devil qi can be. Once that devil regains her original strength, I fear no one will be able to stop her." He sighed. "The 9th floor is already flooded with devilish qi. That means the devil can easily evade us while restoring her strength." He paused before continuing. "Perhaps we should retreat for the time being. Of the Worldbreaker talismans I took from my sect, I only have 2 left." Ling Long fell silent, deep in thought. Lin Yinping could not help asking, "Are you saying we have no way to seal the devil qi again?" Xiang Zhili shook his head and sighed heavily. "If only it were that simple. The original seal has already been broken. And just before we left, the devil destroyed the Dragon Call crest. If we still had that crest, we could activate the reserve sealing formation and suppress the devil again. But now..." Silence once again filled the hall. Then Han Li spoke calmly. "Since there is a backup spell formation, the ancient cultivators, wise as they were, should also have prepared a spare magic tool to control it." Xiang Zhili paused in surprise. After a brief moment of thought, he slowly shook his head. "Indeed, if there is a reserve spell formation, then the ancient cultivators must have prepared an alternative means to control it as well. However, the whereabouts of that magic tool are unknown. It is said to be hidden somewhere on the mountain in an inconspicuous location. Only one of the descendants of the Kunwu masters knew where it was placed. Unfortunately, those descendants have long since concealed their identities. Under such circumstances, what are we supposed to do?" Ling Long let out a cold, bitter snort. "Humph, those old fogies were far too cautious." Lin Yinping and Corpse Xiong both wore troubled expressions upon hearing this. Han Li furrowed his brows slightly before asking, "Was that tool also shaped like an imperial seal?" "No," Xiang Zhili replied casually. "It was called the Heavencrystal Stele. With that object, the reserve sealing formation could be activated." Han Li's expression immediately changed. A sudden thought flashed through his mind. The stone slab he had obtained earlier at the mountain gate wasn't that very name inscribed upon it. At the same moment, Ling Long's gaze casually swept past him. Han Li felt his heart sink. Seeing that no immediate solution presented itself, Xiang Zhili soon spoke again. "Since nothing can be done for now, we should first attempt to leave the mountain. The devil will not be able to escape within a matter of days. We should use this time to gather the cultivators near Nanjiang and establish a grand formation to temporarily reseal the mountain." He paused briefly before continuing. "After that, I will summon all the sects of the great Jin to gather here. Even though the devil will be immensely powerful within this devilish qi, if hordes of cultivators join forces to attack it, there is no reason it cannot be destroyed. As for the true devil qi, we can designate the surrounding several thousand kilometers as a restricted zone, while we search for a method to contain it." With Xiang Zhili's vast experience, it had taken him only a moment to devise such a plan. Corpse Chong let out a long breath before replying politely, "Fellow Taoist Xiang's proposal is very reasonable. I shall return to Myriad Demon Valley and report this matter to our Valley Lord. After all, this crisis does not concern humans alone." "Oh," Xiang Zhili said with a smile, If your valley joins the effort, our chances of victory will increase significantly. I have long heard of the formidable might of fellow Taoist Che. It is a pity that I have never had the chance to greet him in person, as he has always remained in seclusion. Corpse Cheong chuckled dryly, but his gaze soon shifted toward Ling Long. He respectfully bowed to her. Imperial concubine, our Valley Lord once mentioned that he is an acquaintance of yours. Before finishing his sentence, he sent the remainder of his message through voice transmission. Ling Long's calm expression suddenly stirred. A trace of surprise flashed across her eyes. So it's him. I wonder how he discovered that it was I who had been sealed here, Ling Long murmured softly. As she pondered the matter, a faint look of weariness and age appeared upon her face. Corpse Xiong then spoke sincerely. Since your Imperial Highness already knows our Valley Lord's identity, perhaps it would be better for you to remain at Myriad Demon Valley for some time. With countless demons and variant beasts under our command, we could certainly find a suitable body for you. I have no intention of leaving Kunwu Mountain, Ling Long replied flatly. In a moment I will be returning to the 9th floor. Everyone present thought they had misheard her. You intend to return inside? Corpse Cheong exclaimed. How could that be possible? That's right, Ling Long said calmly. But I will not be going alone. She raised a slender finger and pointed directly at Han Li. He will accompany me. His divine Devilbane lightning will prove useful. Han Li revealed a brief flash of surprise, but his expression quickly returned to normal. Xiang Zhili cast Han Li a strange glance before turning back to Ling Long. Senior Ling Long, surely you must be joking. Why would you risk something so dangerous? We are different, Ling Long said coldly. I originally descended from the spirit realm in my true body. Even if my cultivation were restored to the late deity transformation stage, I would still be unable to return unless I reclaimed my original body. Once I recover it, I will return through a reverse spirit stream. She paused before continuing. This time I will rely on the innate abilities of the Silver Moon Wolves. With that power, I should have at least a 50% chance of reclaiming my body. Corpse Xiong hesitated, clearly reluctant. Please reconsider. Xiang Zhili also attempted to dissuade her. Ling Long merely brushed a strand of hair away from her face before letting out a faint, knowing smirk. I know what you're truly worried about. You've been hoping I would reveal the location of a reverse spirit stream, haven't you? You fear that if I go inside, you will lose that opportunity. Corpse Cheong looked somewhat embarrassed when he heard this accusation, while Xiang Zhili remained calm and simply denied it. Ling Long waved her hand dismissively. Enough. Although many humans and demons descended into this world in the past, it is unlikely that any of them truly understood the nature of reverse spirit streams. Even within the spirit realm, they are not something that ordinary cultivators can access. These reverse spirit streams do not possess fixed locations, nor do they exist permanently. Han Li appeared to be quietly observing the conversation, yet in truth, his spiritual sense had already slipped into his storage pouch, carefully examining the Heavencrystal Stele resting within. Beside him, Lin Yinping listened with complete fascination as the others spoke about the mysterious reverse spirit stream. What do you mean, they do not exist permanently? Xiang Zhili asked gravely. The explanation is simple, Ling Long replied coldly. Reverse spirit streams are temporary passages created by harnessing the power of heaven and earth. The passage that originally brought us here ceased to exist long ago. Impossible, Corpse Xiong shouted in disbelief. I clearly saw cultivators returning to the spirit realm after the war. Without reverse spirit streams, how could they have done so? Ling Long answered indifferently. You seem to have forgotten that during the invasion of the Elder Devils, the ancient cultivators of the mortal realm sought help from the spirit realm. Realm Whisper Incense, Xiang Zhili murmured as his brows knit together. Correct, Ling Long said. When those cultivators wished to return, they ignited the incense to notify the spirit realm and request that a passage be opened. She then gave them a faintly mocking smile. Even if you somehow obtained the ritual method, do you know anyone in the spirit realm willing to open such a passage for you? A reverse spirit stream requires a vast amount of peak-grade spirit stones to create. Even if humans and demons joined forces, it would still be nearly impossible to accomplish. Her words extinguished Corpse Xiong's final hopes. After a moment of silence, Xiang Zhili calmly asked, "Then how does your Imperial Highness intend to return to the spirit realm?" "My circumstances are different," Ling Long replied. "I am the concubine of Wolf Monarch Tian Kui and the High Princess of the Silver Moon Wolves. My body and spiritual sense bear the imprint of the star-defying plate. As long as I can reclaim my true body, I will be able to activate the power of that imprint." She raised the plate slightly in her hand. "An elder of my clan once established a formation that responds to the star-defying plate even across realms. When activated, it will forcibly open a small-scale reverse spirit stream to bring me back. The passage will exist for me alone. Anyone else attempting to pass through without the imprint would have their bodies instantly torn apart by the spatial distortions." Her voice grew slightly bitter. "If Yuan Cha's soul fragment had not suddenly possessed me and caused my soul to split apart, I would have long since returned to the spirit realm." Corpse Xiong glanced at the plate in her hand and asked in astonishment, "An imprint? Then the star-defying plate you hold is not its true body. I suspected this legendary treasure seemed far weaker than expected." At those words, Xiang Zhili's smile vanished. His expression darkened considerably. The hopes he had nurtured for hundreds of years had just been crushed. At that moment, Han Li quietly grew more alert. He subtly took several steps backward. He had no idea whether something might erupt next. Corpse Xiong sighed deeply before asking in a desperate tone, "Does this mean, unless one reaches the late deity transformation stage, there is no other path to ascension?" Seeing the earnest gazes fixed upon her, Ling Long smiled faintly. With a particularly enchanting air, she replied, "Of course there is. Apart from reverse spirit streams, there is one other method, but it exists mostly in theory. Very few have ever succeeded with it because the vast majority perished during the attempt." She tilted her head slightly. "Would you like to hear it?" Han Li suddenly felt his mouth go dry. Alarmed by the subtle charm hidden in her voice, he immediately circulated the Great Development Technique, forcefully stabilizing his wavering mind. "Of course I wish to hear it," Xiang Zhili replied hastily. "Even if it carries great risk, I would rather take that chance than wait idly for death." Corpse Xiong nodded repeatedly in agreement. "I can tell you," Ling Long said slowly, "but there is a price." Her lips curled into a faintly sly smile. "You two must lend me something to help me reclaim my body." "Lend you something?" Xiang Zhili and Corpse Xiong stared at her in confusion. "That's right," Ling Long said softly. "The Devil Dragon Blade replica and fellow Taoist Xiang's 2 Worldbreaker talismans. If you loved this story, please consider supporting us through the donation link below. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the best and most immersive video. We truly appreciate you being here with us."